In my opinion, and I know Eli, we were kind of talking about this at the beginning of the season. That's the only way I want to coach, and I think it's the only way to create sustained and consistent success from season to season. Because that's the brand of football that focuses the most on the talent of the players and the skill of the players, and kind of building that from point A to point B. Because as soon as I say positional play, people probably think of like Pep Guardiola or something like that. And my tendency as a coach is definitely more, I would say, aligned with like a Jurgen Klopp, which makes it fitting that we're on like a Liverpool podcast, right? But I do like a little bit of a heavy metal flavor to our football. Really taking it to some teams if and where we can. And not every high school coach is like that.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to American LFC, the podcast where two American brothers talk everything Liverpool Football Club. Today, we're doing something a little bit different and very exciting, in my opinion. We're doing our first official episode of what we are calling the Boot Room. Please welcome an incredible guest. We've had him before, Coach Brandon Pink. Thank you for joining us today, my friend. How are you?
I am fantastic. It's nice to be back.
Yeah, well, thank you for joining us. Also, I have to introduce my brother, Coach Eli Kaywood. How are you feeling, dude?
Great. We had our first official practice for the girls' high school season today, so I am in a wonderful mood.
Okay, yeah, I can tell in the timbre of your voice and the energy you're bringing to the microphone.
It's been a long day, okay?
Yeah. No, I understand.
We
I'm giving you a hard
practice this first week is 3 hours a day, so.
Okay, well, that's great. Okay, well, actually, let's start that, right? I'm actually, today in the boot room, we're going to talk, we're going to get a little bit more granular with the sport of soccer. Instead of just analyzing Liverpool, we're going to be talking specifically about the Platteville High School and Lancaster women's soccer team today. And you guys are obviously, Coach Brandon is the head coach, and Eli is the assistant coach.
JV coach, yeah.
JV coach. And you guys had your first practice today. Will you guys talk to me a little bit about what you do as far as a build-up to the beginning of the season and what preseason looks like for a high school soccer team, Division II high school soccer team in the Midwest? Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. School size of, oh my gosh, we're a co-op program, so you add the two together and we're looking at about 800 kids. So program size of about 40 kids. So yeah, D2. Yeah, to your question, Nate, the preseason, in terms of a high school coach, at least from like a head coach's perspective, and Eli, I know this is the case for you too, as just a JV coach who's very dedicated to what he does. There's really not too much of an off season. You know, there's definitely times in the year where we're not practicing and stuff like that, but coaches' responsibilities never really stop. So, you know, we're always fundraising, scheduling that stuff. You know, I'm always in contact with players. You know, it's one of the weird things about coaching high school is you'll have a handful of players who are very dedicated, and you know their sport is the number one sport, so you know they're going to go out every single season. But you also have a lot of flux with players saying like, you know, maybe I'll do soccer this year, maybe I'll do track this year, and so you're kind of always touching base with them and seeing where they're at and how they're feeling. You know, Eli has been really good about helping me host open gyms this year. So we've been blessed with a brand new turf playing surface at Platteville. So we have actually, my very first time, we've been outside playing soccer basically the entire winter, other than January, where it was really cold and rainy. So yeah, you're kind of doing stuff year round. And definitely ramps up as we get closer to the season. But yeah, the life of the coaches, you're never really truly in off season.
Yeah, totally. And so, Eli, this is going to be your first full season participating in coaching with the women's program. Do you have any particular hopes or goals as far as where you're coming from, and how has your experience so far been for the first day of practice, as well as I think you guys had like sort of the open gyms throughout their spring break as well, right?
We did, and basically the way open gym works is in the state of Wisconsin, we have some rules for off-season contact hours as the coach. So basically these open gyms we show up to be an adult there, but we can't provide any structure or feedback or coaching. We just are kind of there to be an adult and maybe balance out so we can get some play in too. Balance out numbers, I mean. So it's really the girls are kind of leading those sessions, so we just kind of show up and play. So it's not
Right.
like
So like old timey captain's practice.
yeah,
Like
captain's practice would be another name for it. Yeah.
Right.
But as Brandon kind of touched on, we have a very wide breadth of experience. We have some girls that have never played soccer before, and we've got some girls that have played club for, almost 10 years. So it's really finding a balance and a methodology that keeps everyone engaged based on their skill level and their interest, right? So what we did today is we took the first 15, 20 minutes to do small group discussions basically about things like culture, and kind of our theme word for this season is process. We build the process and the results will happen. And so we talked about that for a while, and then I took the girls and did about 45 minutes of strength, agility, and conditioning because, it's a running sport, so you got to be able to do that. And then we split the team where I took girls that have only played either this is their first year or this is their second year, and we worked on, touches, dribbling, short passing, throw-ins. We did like a very simple 10-minute rondo just to get a little bit of a game going. But it's really kind of starting at that baseline of technical fundamental knowledge and trying to build that as quickly as we can, because we have a scrimmage in 6 days against one of the best teams in the state. So
right. Well, that's interesting because it's like last time we all got together and spoke, we were talking sort of about the understanding of institutional knowledge of this sport, right? As far as like the Midwest, like sort of the rural Midwest is concerned, and about how you guys aren't just doing like boots on the ground coaching, but you're also sort of educating a community in a way as well. So Brandon, how exactly do you navigate the difference in having such different levels of experience and being able to ensure that your most experienced players can be challenged and that your least experienced players aren't quitting because of the rigors of the sport?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And I think coaching in our context, in a rural, pretty small town area, I think that's kind of the fundamental question. I would say the first thing that I try to do as a head coach is you have to get a good staff around you. One person working with 40 girls at all the various levels that they're at, you just can't possibly do that. I would say it's even challenging to do for like two coaches. And so I'm really fortunate to have some people who are willing to give up their time. In addition to Eli, we went out and picked up actually my younger brother Ryan, who I coached in high school. He was on one of my very first varsity teams, and he's done some coaching at the club level too. So he's kind of serving as my assistant at the varsity level, and then. We have a player of ours who just graduated last year, Bresnia, who is Bresnia is her name. She is helping out Eli as the volunteer on the JV. So, we have 4 people who work with a squad of about 40 players, and we all kind of bring something a little bit different to the table. Both Eli and I think are soccer nuts, and of course we've kind of taking overall charge of the varsity and JV, but my brother Ryan has had lots of coaching experience in the past, so he can do lots of work with the girls. Bresnia is an interesting story in that her very first year playing soccer was 2 years ago as a junior. So she's only got 2 years of soccer ever under her belt. And she's coming back as a coach this year. So her niche, if you will, on the coaching staff is kind of paying attention to culture and playing like the mother hen a little bit for all the new players, just kind of taking their temperature hey, are you new? Do you feel overwhelmed? Like, let's talk about why you feel overwhelmed. Like, soccer's still a great time, even if you feel like you're kind of drinking from the fire hose a little bit. So I think part of the way to hit all those different levels in our context is to get a good staff around you and to get good people to help you out.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? Yeah, because there's just so many different disparate needs. I'm sure between just the scale of the teams, to be able to help everybody that needs the help that they need. It's so interesting. Do you feel like, I'm curious of previous years, do you feel like this is sort of a common occurrence in this in the system just in Platteville, Lancaster, that there are young women who are going out for the sport having no experience in it, and so that you do have large numbers of like sort of education in the process?
Yeah, this year might be a little bit more than most, but I think one of the big things that I've always tried to emphasize as a coach is, our motto is becoming the best person you can be through the game of soccer. And so obviously I want part of our program to be based around really competitive, high achieving, varsity play, going deep into playoffs and stuff. But, I get asked by people all the time, like, do you do tryouts? Do you cut people from the team? And one of my big values as a coach is we won't turn anybody away. If you've never done soccer before, if you've never done a sport before. So, we do get a fair amount of players who have never really done competitive soccer, competitive sports, really, just because we go out and we try to find those people. Because ultimately, it's about creating a positive, growing experience more than it is about purely, being the best soccer team that we can be. So,
right, of course. I mean, that's that's really the ultimate question about high school athletics, right? Like, what is the purpose of a high school program, right? Is the program to make tiny little collegiate athletes who are intention to go pro to sign like athletic wear contracts, or is it to just be like positive, hardworking, team focused individuals in society? And I would assume that it's probably the latter, because just because of the resources, like the human resource that it would take to be able to develop teams that are competitive year in, year out, is probably just not achievable with the resource from Grant County. I would venture to guess, but I don't know if that's the case.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. And we've had some really good teams, I know, in my time playing, in my time coaching, and I'm sure in both of your experiences with playing high school soccer in Platteville too. The number of people that I played with or coached that went on even to play like D3 soccer is a relatively small proportion. I don't know what it was for your cohorts when you played, but yeah, even just making it on to like a D3 collegiate level, that's not the norm for our players.
Right.
So,
yeah. It's interesting. So I'm curious, and Eli, I'll toss this one to you. So it's like, obviously, you guys have had the opportunity to see the young women working out in their open gym situation. And how do you feel the process is going to go, as far as like the education of some of the newer players, but also integrating them into the structure and the culture of the team, in hopes, I would think, of retaining their commitment to the sport beyond just this single year, I would guess.
Right. So kind of my approach to being the JV coach is like, if varsity is the senior team of an EPL program, then I'm the under 23s or under 21s coach. And so my thing is to be preparing girls either for later in the season, next year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, to make it on that senior team. So I take a lot of what Brandon wants, tactically, technically, and try and break that down into easier to understand bits, so we're investing in the future of varsity at JV. If JV doesn't win a single game this season, to me that's not a failure, as long as the girls are developing individually and is with that team culture.
Yeah, totally. That makes sense, right? Because it's like the idea is that they're going to try and play the football that the varsity is playing, right? Understanding the structure. And so I know that we want to sort of talk about, like, we were wanting to talk about, the program and Platteville Lancaster sports, but I am actually kind of curious if we can get even a little bit more macro about it. What's the formation and what is the overall point of view or ideology of the Platteville Hillman Lancaster women's team?
Yeah, that's been a lot of fun to kind of talk through. It's been one of the things that's been really enjoyable about coaching with you for the very first time, Eli, is getting a chance to sit down and have those conversations about playing style, coaching philosophy. What does it look like when our team is really, really playing well? And I've coached with a few different assistant coaches, and those conversations go totally different depending on who that coach is, right? Who you're coaching with. My philosophy as a coach has always been very proactive. So, at Tactics Nerds, you can talk about it a number of different ways. Like, it's probably the simplest way to describe it is positional play. I want to dominate the ball. I want to keep possession. I want to primarily be playing with the ball at our feet in the opposition's half. We want to press high when we lose it, but we don't just want to keep sterile possession, right? Because as soon as I say positional play, people probably think of like Pep Guardiola or something like that. And my tendency as a coach is definitely more, I would say, aligned with like a Jurgen Klopp, which makes it fitting that we're on like a Liverpool podcast, right? But I do like a little bit of a heavy metal flavor to our football, really taking it to some teams if and where we can. And not every high school coach is like that. You have some people who philosophically just don't want to play that way. Some people philosophically who that's a hard system to coach, especially for players who have never played before, right? But in my opinion, and I know, Eli, we were kind of talking about this at the beginning of the season, that's the only way I want to coach, and I think it's the only way to create sustained and consistent success from season to season. Because that's the brand of football that focuses the most on the talent of the players and the skill of the players, and kind of building that from point A to point B. If you imagine somebody like a Mourinho and that kind of approach at a high school level, your players aren't going to improve as much as if you take that kind of proactive positional possession style play, right? It's player development, I think, is the key there, and that's definitely kind of where I come from. So you said like system, Nate. I'm pretty agnostic on what the tactical system is, whether it's 4-3-3. I'd say I usually play in like a 4-2-3-1, but I've done 3-4-3, I've done 4-3-3, I've done like 4-diamond-2. But whatever we're doing, however we're arranged across the pitch, I always want to be dominating the ball, playing front foot football, pressing high, and really taking it to the opposition.
That sounds exciting and like awesome to see. Do you feel like that this current season you have the personnel to implement the ideas that you're hoping to put forward?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I think for me, that's basically the approach that I'm going to take no matter what personnel I have.
Right.
And, maybe we're implementing it at a really high complex level. Maybe we're kind of just starting off. But for me, we're going to play that way regardless. And, we'll pick up kind of where is a best fit for the team, for the varsity, and also for Eli with the, the JV squad. And we'll kind of just take it where the players are at, and we'll go from there.
Nice. I told Eli this the other day, and it's sort of like, it's weird because it's the first time that like my actual profession has aligned with this love and hobby, which is that I was just working on a shoot for, I didn't sign an NDA, so I can't imagine this being a big deal, but they might want to keep it secret. But I'll just say a very small niche soccer apparel company that is not Nike, that is not Adidas, okay, that is not Under Armour, okay, a smaller manufacturer of soccer apparel wear, right? That rhymes with grotto. And I was very fortunate enough to be working on a job just a below the line worker. I was working as a swing grip, so I was just building lights and like stands and stuff like that. But we were shooting at BMO Stadium with some professional soccer players that we would all know that, but I do feel like I should keep them anonymous. That are retired from the national team, and it was like very cool to be on the BMO field and like seeing these people like they're just doing bits that we can shoot, right? But they had a professional trainer there that I thought this was really interesting. Like with the production, there was this professional soccer trainer, and I started talking to him. He was quite a young guy, and he had experience coming up through the Wigan Academy, and then he had mentioned that both of his knees went out at 19, and so he had to retire. But he basically, I know, but he started to focus on personal training for pro level soccer players during the off season, right? And then he sort of got into that work as a consultant for these sort of commercials and stuff like that. So he's working with really, really high level athletes. And I said in between a take, I was like, hey, my brother is a coach of a high school program in the Midwest. What do you think is the most important drill for kids to like get better the fastest? And he was like, oh, that's a great question. And he was like, I would say the most important thing is 1-on-1s, 2-on-1s, 3-on-1 games. Or I'm sorry, 1-on-1s, 2-on-2s, 3-on-3 games, and rondos. He was like, if you just do those things, because then, and it makes sense if you think about it, it requires the ball to be at your player's feet at the highest frequency, right? That was just sort of an aside, but the question is, what exactly do you see as the implementation of your training sessions, and like how is that going to help the longevity of the team throughout this campaign? Either of you can take this, and both of you can.
Go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, one of the things that I think is one of the great untapped training tools, and I think that's true both of our kind of local context here in high school and in Wisconsin, but I think, we talked about like U.S. soccer. I think that's broadly true probably throughout U.S. soccer as well, but is good rondo training. I think the word rondo and the rondo training exercise, I think when people hear that, they probably think of, the training videos that they see on YouTube of like Pep Guardiola's Bayern Munich or Manchester City or, whoever kind of doing these like 10v2s, like these rondo kind of keep away games. And there is a real art to coaching with rondos in the way that you manipulate the games and you change the spacing and the numbers and kind of the coaching points that you're looking for. And, probably since for about 10 years now, I've used the rondo as the training or the basis for my training. Everything starts with rondo. And it's, for me, it's the building block for everything that we do is that rondo game. Certainly you have to like build skill and, you do other kind of things too. But, there's no other game that gets you the same amount of touches in the least amount of time for all your players. You have to execute every one of your actions within the context of playing. You kind of hear the horror stories about coaches that will just like line players up and then they'll just, you get the ball and shoot, and then you go to the end of the line, and you get the ball and shoot and go to the end of the line, and that sort of thing. And
You're
then
describing the way that we learned how to play soccer?
Yeah, and that was for me too, across so many coaches, right? But you're doing all those skills in isolation, whereas in the rondo, you're doing it within the context of the game. And as we all know, football, you're processing 1,000 different things at once, and the rondo is the only way to get that authentic kind of holistic training. And it's so much more than just like a little 10v2 keep away or 4v2 keep away. There's a real art to it, but I've spoken about that long enough. I know Eli.
No, it's great. I mean, that was the question. That was the question.
Yeah.
Eli, what are your hopes in the implementation of training throughout this campaign?
Well, again, with being the JV coach, I think it's the small-sided games that are really important. you know, because I think the dynamism of a small-sided game where you have to press, you really get all four phases of play in a small-sided game, where you don't necessarily get that in like the standard 4v2 rondo, right? So I think that's really important, just like the 2v2 and the 3v3 and even 4v4 with different kind of coaching points maybe set up at the beginning of the training session to talk about keywords, and then get them into more game-like scenarios with small-sided games. And for me, I love the idea of doing that because that's how Bill Shankly built Liverpool, was with small-sided games. You know, bringing that down from Scotland and the Scottish passing game. You know, I mean, when reading Shankly's biography, he even when he was coaching Liverpool, he'd show up at the park on Sunday and play small-sided games with kids and dads. You know, he just loved it so much.
Right.
And then there's all the anecdote of, you know, he would play with Liverpool because Shankly had like almost 300 caps at the professional level, that he'd set it up to be England versus Scotland, and they'd keep playing until Scotland was in the lead, and then he'd call the game.
Be like, yeah,
all right, we're done. Scotland won.
That's very funny. You guys do that, huh?
We haven't had any coach v player straight up small-sided games yet, but now that we've got 4 coaches, we could do a little small-sided round robin tournament and have the coaches take everyone on.
That could be fun. So you mentioned that you guys have a scrimmage coming up, preseason scrimmage. When's the official kickoff of the season, and who will you be playing in the scrimmage, and then who will be your first competitor in conference? Is that the level that you compete at?
Yeah, so we our first scrimmage is going to be coming up against another side here in Wisconsin who Belleville New Glarus is a technical name for their program, but they are a very well-regarded program. Their coach has been there for a long time, and I have a really high opinion of him. But they're the type of program that they're making deep runs in the playoffs every year. They've been to several state championship games, so. We definitely try to, outside of our conference, kind of at the beginning part of the season, and then later on is kind of when we fill more of our conference games. The early part of the season is we're kind of getting teams from outside our conference. But so we'll start off with a scrimmage against a very challenging opponent, and after that, we actually open up our season on April 1st, I believe is the date. And we are hosting the former Division II runners-up Oregon. We'll be hosting them right at Platteville.
Oh, wow,
so so we really go out and we try to schedule the top quality teams. You know, it's, what do they say, to be the best you have to beat the best. So we definitely like scheduling that caliber of opponent.
Okay, so you make a conscious decision to seek out very well-ranked teams to front load the season, so that by the end of the season or the midway point of the season, when you guys are like up and running and eligible to be playing conference games that allow you to continue on through the through the, I guess, the tier system of to get to state, you guys are kind of like firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there are tons of different philosophies on how you can kind of build a schedule as a high school coach, but for sure, I want to be playing, and you want to have a mix, right? You don't want to play the best teams all the time, because you want to have a nice mix in there. But I find it's really important to get that high caliber opposition early in the season, because they're going to point out all the ways in which you're weak. Right. You know, it's sometimes I've had the opposite, which is true, where, you know, we'll try to schedule a team or two that's below our level, and the danger with that is you put certain players in certain locations, or you try out certain formations or approaches, and they work, but they weren't really tested. And so I love to be tested the early part of the season.
We're luring the girls to the deep end of the pool with a puppy, and then we're going to shove them in.
Yeah, wow, that sounds perfectly reasonable. Feels like a good metaphor.
Shark Week, baby.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I just want to hit like one last question, and then I'm not exactly sure how long we wanted this to go, but okay. Could you just explain really quickly how the state like tournament works? Like just for me, like I'm curious as to how that works.
So I guess I'll handle the conference part, right? So we have, 5 or 6 teams kind of in our geographic area that are similar size programs with school population that we play a home and away game against, and that will determine our conference standing once those 10 or 12 games are done. And then when conference is done, we have to have a sectional seating meeting where all the head coaches get together and agree on, do they vote on seeding the teams that are going to play in sectional?
Yep.
Okay.
And so then sectional is a single leg elimination. There's no regional, right?
There is yeah.
Oh, there
so
is regional. Okay.
It's a little bit complicated in that some teams will divide it into 2 different regionals. Some teams just lump all the, or some regions will just lump all the teams together and call it a sectional. It's a little bit complicated, but I suppose maybe the rough equivalent is conference is kind of like your domestic league. So if you're like a Liverpool, that would be like the Premiership, right?
Right.
And the state tournament is a little bit more like a European competition.
Oh,
So,
okay, copy,
yeah.
gotcha. Yeah, so it's like a single leg knockout round.
Yep.
Like that's
Yep.
the okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Is there anything else that you guys wanted to touch on at all? Is there any subject, Eli, that you feel like we haven't covered that you guys were hoping to talk about?
No, I think this has been good.
Okay, great. Then in that case, I'm going to ask a couple of quick questions right here, Brandon. We're going to do you first.
Here we go. Rapid fire. Bring it on.
Rapid fire speed round. Are you ready? Pep Guardiola, Sir Alex Ferguson. Who's better?
Guardiola.
Okay, Pep Guardiola. Okay, here we go. Ronaldo, original 9, or Cristiano Ronaldo, number 7. Who's better?
R9.
Okay, yeah. All right, I'm into it. Okay, last one for you because I only came up with 6, and I'm going to give you 3 apiece. Okay, Bale or Kane? You got to choose one. Who's better?
Kane.
Oh, that's a hot take.
And after the last podcast where I ripped him,
Oh,
yeah,
my word. Controversy. Okay, I want to make sure that I mark the ones that I did. Okay, all right. Eli, are you ready?
I'm ready.
By the way, everybody, please leave in the comments below how poorly Brandon did that whole round. Okay, do the same for Eli. All right, here we are. Coach Eli, ready for this? Shankly or Fergie?
Oh, Shankly.
Okay, yeah, that's just so much bias. He doesn't even think about it. Okay, Pele or Maradona? Pele, Maradona. Who's better?
Oh my God, Pele.
Okay. All right, here we go. Your 2 favorites, Cristiano Ronaldo or Leo Messi?
Neither.
Who's better? No, that's not an option. That's a cop-out. Who's better?
I mean, you got to go with Messi, I think.
Yeah, okay, great. Yeah. Okay, fantastic. Eli's such a hater. Isn't it incredible that it's just like these 2 guys, they're just like aliens in the stratosphere. He's like, nah, I don't respect either of them.
yeah, neither of them. Salah.
Okay,
yeah.
hold on. Yeah, Salah. I think, however, if I'm going to if I can pontificate for a moment on my last question.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
Okay,
what this
from a
time's for.
coaching standpoint, I would prefer Ronaldo because of his work
Really?
ethic. Yeah, because of his work ethic and how he improves teams around him based on how he trains, right? They talk about when he went to the team in Saudi Arabia, they all lost a chunk of body weight, body fat. They're training harder, they're eating better. The entire team culture has improved. If I'm talking about a fan of the sport admiring talent, it's Messi. But then you hear things about Messi getting ready for a Champions League game against Liverpool at Anfield or at the Nou Camp, right? And he's just getting a massage the whole time, goes out and takes a couple shots, go back in, keeps getting his massage, and then goes out and maybe scores one of the best free kicks ever.
Yeah.
But as a coach, I don't want my player saying, I want to be Messi, because I think the way I want athletes to approach their commitment to the sport is more like Ronaldo.
Yeah, I get that. That makes sense. It is interesting though, because the thing is like, obviously both of them can change a game in a heartbeat, in the blink of an eye. They both have the ability to do something incredible. But it does feel like, at least at this point in their careers, that Messi is probably more of a game changer, and that those tight, squeaky games, like there is a world where like you can set up your team around him just basically being able to.
Okay, but let's be honest. They're both playing in a farmers league right now.
Well, they both are now. Yeah. But still, I mean, like, go look at any clip on YouTube, and they're by far and away. It's like literally there's like 4 or 5 guys, right? It's like Pele, Maradona, Messi, and Ronaldo.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure that there are there were people from the 30s that they're like, oh yeah, you know, he was incredible. You know, what was it? There's a Brazilian Socrates, and there's like a bunch of other people.
Those guys were late 70s, early 80s.
Right. But
the problem we get to, like anybody like before the 1960s, when there's no reliable TV footage, it's just all just like hearsay, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess the sport's changed a little bit in the last 60 years. I don't know. 60, 70 years.
Still trying to kick a ball in a goal.
Yeah. It is that simple and also that difficult.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's probably all what we've got here for today in the Boot Room. This is our official first episode of the Boot Room, but kind of really our second episode. Brandon, thank you again for joining us. We always appreciate it. It's always lovely to chat with you.
Yeah, lovely to be back. Yeah.
Very excited for you. I mean, I think we'll probably do some season reviews or catch-ups to see how the season is going for the team. And, I think unless there's anything else to say, it's a sign-off from here. So
like, so much, comment, subscribe. Let us know how we did with our rapid-fire questions.
Yeah, exactly. Let us know what Eli's official coaching position of the 2 greatest players of all time is. Or 21st century greatest players of all time. Okay, guys, that's all we got for today. Thanks so much. Cheers.
All right, thanks.